Welcome to OutKick Live. I'm Ryan Glassbeagle, joined by Bobby Burak and former NFL lineman Geoff Schwartz. Geoff hosts a radio show on the Pac-12 network, SiriusXM 373. You can get his podcast, Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You, anywhere podcasts are found. Geoff, how are you holding up these days?
I am fantastic because we finally started getting news this week of football being back, which is what I've just been holding on to, right? Holding on to every single day that goes by is one more day till football starts. And so we're starting to get more movement on that. We've got some sports back now. I mean, I'm not a NASCAR guy per se, but I've been watching some NASCAR, got golf this weekend. So we're moving in a good direction. I'm happy about that.
Geoff, I'm just happy you didn't wear a hat. Because that way it makes Ryan look like the one trying to hide something.
And my hair's super long right now, too. Like, I could definitely wear it. I had to put some product in my hair to keep it back.
Yeah.
Are you a hat guy?
Am I what?
Hat guy. Like, you wear a hat more often than not?
I mean,
I haven't worn a hat in, probably 6 months.
I'll wear a hat when my hair gets long, but I'm not a backwards hat guy. I definitely am.
See, I am. If I'm going to wear a hat, it's going to be backward.
Same here.
Yeah, I have to wear the hat because my hair is just totally unmanageable. I'm not blessed with a good head of lettuce, and I'm in a state where I can't get a haircut still, although maybe, knock on wood, first week of June, it's looking like I might be able to get a haircut if current trends progress. So very excited for that. I wrote a piece this morning on, I think fans are going to be back in venues sooner than we realize. Now, do I think there's going to be full arenas? No, but I do think that in some of these states that are opening faster, like Florida and Georgia, we're going to start to see reduced capacity seating. We had Gene Smith, Ohio State's AD, he tweeted that with changing regulations, they could fit 40 or 50,000 people in the horseshoe. You're an NFL guy. What does the NFL do if the Jaguars and Dolphins and Bucks are allowed to have fans, but the 49ers or the Bills or the Bears are not? How do they manage the finance equality and the competitive advantage equality in a situation like that?
Well, I didn't really think about this from the finance equality thing. That would be a concern. But I think the NFL, unlike the NCAA, will just say, look, we're either doing fans or no fans. You can either have fans in there or you can't. They only have 32 franchises, and they control what happens. The NCAA has already said they're staying out of it. They're going state by state. If your state's open, you can do it. If not, we're not going to have fans. I think the NFL will just say, look, guys, either we're all doing it or we're not. And maybe in one state you can only have 20,000. One state you have 40,000. That's just like a lot of NFL stadiums now. Some are full, some aren't. But I think that the no fans affects the game of college football way more than the NFL. There's only really 3 stadiums in the NFL that are considered kind of loud. And Kansas City, Seattle, and New Orleans. And Seattle and Kansas City last year, lost a bunch of home games. Home field advantage last year wasn't as big of a deal. And it really doesn't get loud anywhere else. There's moments and whatnot, but college football, a big part of the game is emotion. These 18 and 22-year-old kids, and they like playing in front of crowds. It fires them up. It gets them going. And I think it will affect college football more than it does the NFL.
Geoff, couldn't you make a case, though, that if college football has to go without fans this year, and nobody wants that. I mean, everybody would prefer fans in the stadium, but wouldn't the product possibly be more competitive? Because you look at all these big rivalry games, a lot of times the home team has an advantage that the road team can't overcome. You can make a case that going to Death Valley now could be a much more competitive game if the teams aren't equal in talent.
Well, it could be really fun because I think you're right about that. You'd have a lot of teams that come into stadiums. I mean, kind of either way, right? You'd have a team coming to Death Valley that isn't used to, that gets to play in the quiet, or you have kind of a team going on the road, a big favorite going on the road, and it's just dead. It's hard to play in a stadium with no juice. I played in those before. We played at Stanford way back in 2004, their old stadium, 85,000, big open bowl, track around the stadium, their old stadium. And there were 12,000 people there. You can hear people talk in the crowd. Playing an environment like that is not very fun if you're the big favorite. And so it can work kind of in both directions. But, I've watched a little bit of the German Soccer League. I've watched the KBO and NASCAR and golf, and I haven't noticed at least my viewing experience has not been changed without fans there. Obviously, it's easy to tell in a soccer stadium they're not there. So it'll be interesting to see how, if the broadcast changes with the camera angles to not show a giant open stadium with no fans in it. Maybe they do put the fake fans, hopefully not sex dolls, in the crowd, but they maybe find a way to make it for viewers. I think for football players, whether there's 0 fans or 25,000 fans are kind of the same, honestly. I mean, you get some noise, you really don't. The difference, obviously, is if you have a full, for example, my Ducks, Ohio State comes September 12th. We're going to have an empty stadium. The governor's already said, at least through September, we're not having fans at games. That's a huge disadvantage for us. I would not play that game. If I was Oregon, I'd try to buy myself out of that game or move it to 2022 because we need that crowd on our side. And without having it, we're going to get our butts whooped probably.
I do think just because the governor says a date now, they've been moving posts like away from dates. I mean, I live in Illinois and they had said no restaurants until late June. And then all of a sudden they come, yes, by the way, outdoor restaurants, May 29th. And it's like, what? Like, I didn't know that you could relax this. But I have a question about, as a football player, we know there is home field advantage. It exists. But as a road player, what percent of home field advantage do you think is attributable to the noise, which we just talked about, versus what percent of it is attributable to you wake up in your own bed, you're comfortable, you didn't have to fly or take a bus or whatever, and so you've got the comforts of home versus the discomfort of the road?
I think it's a lot of noise, honestly. I think, we sleep in a hotel in a home game too. So you're at the hotel for a home game or an away game, feels quite the same. Obviously in a home game, you have family and friends in attendance, probably in an away game, you don't, but it's more about the crowd, in my opinion, the crowd noise, having to be uncomfortable. It's part of it is as an offensive player, is when you can't hear yourself think. So it's so loud, you get the play call and you're walking the line of scrimmage, and you have to think about what what the call is, what you see in front of you, what might happen, what the audible might be. And the louder it gets, the less easier, that's a terrible way to phrase that, it's much more difficult to hear yourself think, right? And that's where the noise comes in a factor. But I will say another thing about the travel is that a warm weather team going to cold in December is brutal. Like, that's really tough to do because cold makes you uncomfortable, right? Your warm up is just not as good. It's cold in the hotel. It's cold on the bus. It's just cold everywhere. And that uncomfortable, feeling uncomfortable that late in the season is tough on players.
Geoff, I want to transition to your media career. How did you get into the media? I've heard some stories about how you got in there. It was a little untraditional. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah. So when I got to New York, it was 2014. I was playing with the Giants. I kind of decided I wanted to try to hit the media route a little bit harder than I had been, and wanted to kind of get into media. So I hired a PR guy, and we just kind of did the rounds, right? We did local news and local TV shows, and I do the occasional hit on Sirius Radio and whatnot. Just try to build my brand up, right? I wasn't doing much on Twitter besides just the regular tweeting and whatnot. But just getting reps, right? Going on NFL Network when I went to Los Angeles and doing things like that. And then as I transitioned out of my career, I hired an agent, Debbie Spander at Wasserman. She's fantastic. And we just started doing everything. And I just say, the one thing that I'm not a big name guy, right? I didn't win a Super Bowl. I never was a Pro Bowler, 7th round draft pick. That stuff hurts. It does not help you in the media to kind of be a nobody, because they hire people that have won Super Bowls, have been Pro Bowlers, and they know their names. Even if they're not terribly good, they at least get a chance to be good, right? And I'm just a nobody. So my thing was I never said no to anything. I said yes to everything for about 2 years. If you want to do a 15-minute interview on, 105.7 The Moose in Milwaukee, I'm doing it, right? Like, I'm doing everything that I could ever do. I never said no. I worked weird hours at night doing Sirius Radio, and then just started with I had a Sirius Radio hit once a week, and then just kind of build up. And that was my thing. Now I'm fortunate enough to say no to local interviews and whatnot and turn down some stuff and then just build from there. One thing I think is important is that all athletes think they can be the color commentator, all right? And every guy that's finished wants to be Tony Romo. And it's important to know what you're good at, in my opinion. So I called a couple games. I called 3 games 3 years ago now on Stadium. And it's like, I wasn't very good at that. I mean, it's just like, look, I know everyone wants to do it, but you're not very good at it. So do something you're good at. Focus on the radio. Focus on the writing. Focus on getting on TV. And look, I'd love to go back and call games. I'd imagine I'd be better now 3 years later than I was in 2017. But I think just knowing what you're good at and being able to do that, and I think just asking, like when I'm hosting OutKick on Monday and Tuesday with Jason, I literally ask Clay, like, hey Clay, if you have a day off, can I host for you? And he's like, all right, sure. Like, I mean, part of it is like just begging people for jobs, and I just did it all. I no shame in that. So I am still working my way up. It's hard, man. I had good momentum heading into this spring, and then obviously with things kind of shut down, that died down on some places. But what? Yeah, something happened. Yeah, it's why you can't get a haircut. I can. Well, yeah, we can get haircuts on Friday out here in Charlotte. So I may or may not do that. We'll see. But nonetheless, I just think it's just trying to find new spaces, trying to be creative. I put up a series on YouTube right now, just kind of killing time, showing X's and O's stuff, learning how to do different types of media. And I think really moving forward, gambling is going to be huge. I love to gamble. I was at Action Network for about a year. I'm trying to get in that space more. I just man, talk to everyone, network, and I have a great agent. Debbie's fantastic. So it's just working your way up. But I get it, man. Like, I don't have that ring. I don't have the pro. It's tough. It really is.
I'm going to steal a debate they were having on the Webitard show today. Dan said that Austin Rivers is better at his job than like they are at theirs on the show. So Austin Rivers, end of roster NBA player at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think that the bottom end players on pro rosters, whether that be NFL or NBA, are better at their jobs than the top in the sports talk media industry? Or do you think that the top of the sports talk industry is better than the bottom of the league's talents?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. So you're saying like a Colin Cowherd, a Dan Patrick, a Clay, or like,
yeah.
How do you
like,
yeah. How do you
at the top have like real national jobs and established followings? Now they make less money per year in many cases than like Austin Rivers did. Like Austin Rivers signed a $35 million contract. Joe Rogan's getting that now, but like nobody really in sports is getting a deal like that.
I think Le Batard's not being fair to himself, man. I mean, it's hard to get to the top of that, right? At the top of the industry, and the amount of work you put in to prep a solo show. I know he has people on his show, but the amount of work that you have to do to each and every day to come up with topics, make sure it flows, interviewing skills. You have to learn how to interview people. Austin Rivers is very talented at his job, clearly. I mean, he's in the NBA for a reason, but he doesn't even start. I don't know. I kind of feel like they should give themselves a little more credit than that.
Yeah, well, I think in the question too, it's not just about how good you are, it's how replaceable you are. Nothing against the River, but I don't even know what team he's on right now. I have to check. I mean, you could replace him tomorrow. There's not a lot of people that you could replace Colin Cowherd with that would draw the same ratings across terrestrial radio, his podcast, and FS1. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I don't even know what team Austin Rivers is on. I don't know what he's averaging right now. So, I mean, I would say that he's much more replaceable than top broadcast, because I don't know how many top broadcasters, at least on the radio talk side, are really separated from the pack. You mentioned Dan Patrick. I'm not the biggest Le Batard fan, but I think he's probably up there in that echelon. Christopher Mad Dog Russo. But there's not a lot, Jeff. I mean, after that, there's probably a pretty big gap as far as national notoriety. Now, you could make a case that there are some that are as skilled as those guys. They don't have the appeal and the mainstream buzz that the top three have, or top four.
I just think people don't understand how tough it can be to do this job, and like the amount of trying to make sure you have topics to talk about. Obviously, you have an opinion, but it can't be an opinion that you don't believe, in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of people that I think give opinions that they don't believe, and it's like I'm like, come on, you really can't believe that. There's plenty of people that do that, and I think it's just tough at times to have an opinion on a lot of subjects. Like, I find myself at times, and I can get away with this on Twitter, like there's some topics where like, I'm just like, I'm not tweeting about it. I'm just not doing it. Like I don't have a great opinion on it. You don't have to have an opinion on everything, by the way. And I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to talk about it. And sometimes, though, that doesn't work that way because there's not a lot of things to talk about in media. You have to make up what you feel about it and come up with a good argument. So it's tougher than people, I think give it credit. They think they could just go and do a radio show or go on TV and write, and they find out that it's just not as easy as they think it is.
I'm glad you brought up that it's okay to punt in media. Like, you don't have to go for it on 4th and 17 from your opponent's red zone. Like, you can just punt, stay away from a topic. If you don't have something to add about it, you don't have to weigh in. It's like, it's that simple.
I agree, and I do it all the time. There's stuff I just don't tweet about. I'm like, I don't really have a great opinion on it, or there's things where like I don't really know what my opinion should be now. You know, like I might have an opinion in a day or two as I watch it more or think about the situation more. But I feel like in the media, we do rush to give our hot take right away and our opinion right away. I don't always do that. There are times when, of course, I do, especially in the NFL side. I mean, that's what I do. But in the NBA or baseball, or if I'm not sure on a subject, I just will not tweet about it right away. It'll still be a hot topic sometimes 24 hours later when I'll decide to do it. But I do think we do rush now to have that first take on something. And it's not often the best take you can even come up with.
Geoff, do you think Joe Rogan's blockbuster deal with Spotify reported over $100 million? We don't know the years yet. Do you think that will pave the way for others in the podcast industry to strike not $100 million deals because no one else is Joe Rogan, but at least elevate the podcast industry, which has been hard to monetize thus far?
Yeah, I'm really curious about this deal from Spotify's end, right? I mean, obviously the ad revenue they're going to generate will be enough to cover $100 million. I mean, it's a lot. I think there's some podcasts that can do it, obviously, but I just think there's a lot of podcasts that just don't generate the revenue, right? That don't generate the ability for someone to pay $100 million for your podcast. I mean, part of my take comes to mind as a podcast that might get paid a ton of money at some point. I mean, they're owned by Barstool, so they probably aren't gonna be bought out anytime soon. But part of my take is one. I love that. I don't necessarily like everything Barstool does, but I like those two guys. I think they're really entertaining and they're creative, and I think it's a good show. I mean, how many other podcasts can really say that they're at a point where they can get $50 million from Spotify to go on their network?
Well,
I wrote about this yesterday. I mean, in sports, there's probably not a lot. I do think the fantasy football podcasts have a lot of value, not maybe $50 million value, but like Matthew Berry contract expired. I think Spotify picking up him would be a big deal, or the fantasy footballers who do their own podcast. I think that would be a good get for Spotify. I also look outside, some of the political podcasts, although Spotify hasn't really wanted to get into that yet. I mean, there is some value in there, like Ben Shapiro show, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's going to bid against them too? But I mean, you mentioned part of my take, Geoff. Let's say like Barstool struck a deal with, let's call it Spotify or Pandora/Sirius or somebody else. You're going to be the exclusive platform for our audio and video content. It would be worth an enormous licensing deal on the level of almost Rogan. And so they don't necessarily have to sell their equity. They can license platform exclusivity out and make a lot that way. I think that's a big difference between what happened with Rogan and then Spotify buying The Ringer. Like, Rogan's going to get another bite at the apple in a few years.
Yeah, he set himself up really well. I'm just curious on part of my take specifically, like, at some point, those two are going to split, right? I mean, at some point, they're going to. I mean, are they going to do the podcast for 15 more years together? I mean, that's part of it too. Is like I always feel like at some point it's going to be over. I hope it doesn't end because it's like I said, I really enjoy it.
I'd be stunned if it ends any time in the near term. I think like they're both like white hot. There's going to be tension in any partnership. Like Mike and the Mad Dog is one that comes to mind. But like, look, Mike and Tony have never broke up, and their relationship extends even previously to 2001. I mean, they've been close since they were in the Washington Post sports section together. So they're coming up on about 30 years at this point of a partnership. And so it's not necessarily inevitable that it has to end. Who knows?
Yeah, and I glad you brought up Mike and Tony because myself and a lot of people are calling Joe Rogan digital media's Howard Stern, which I think is a valid comparison. I made the case before. I think Big Cat and PFT together are digital media's Wilbon and Kornheiser. I think they can have that type of longevity. I think their chemistry, their relationship on air is the closest we have seen since Kornheiser Wilbon. Now, some people will say Stephen A. and Skip. I think people forget Stephen A. and Skip were only full-time together for about 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Their chemistry is fantastic. They play off each other well. They actually interview. It's interesting. I think that the last couple of years they've done a really good job at interviewing. I think they've gotten better at that. I remember I went on a couple of years ago and I was like, man, they're just going to ask me silly questions. It was fabulous. I was like, oh, they were asking me real football questions. They've gone, I think, better interviewing too. So it's even more fun to listen to it. But the segments they do and the joking and stuff, it's very relatable. And that's why I think a lot of people like listening to them. And now as they get older and they have families, and I know Big Cat does and PFT doesn't, but you get a little bit more of the family humor, which is what, I'm watching Big Cat play college football on Twitch every night. I don't even own Twitch. I just literally stream on my phone, and he's got his kid sleeping, and I'm like, I get it, man. I get he's whispering, and it's something as a dad, I'm like, I get it, man. You want to have fun, but also your kid is sleeping in the room next to you. How do you do both at the same time? I've literally watched almost every one of his games. I don't know, there's no sports on, or I never pictured myself watching a Twitch of someone that I don't have his number on my phone. We're not friends, but I watch him play video games on every night. It's crazy.
The storyline where the BCS jobbed him out of making the national title game was about as perfect as it could have gotten.
And it was a Pac-12 school. And I was like, see, you learned Pac-12 bias, buddy. You get it. So you got his first taste of being out West. I liked it.
Yeah, Geoff. So you talked about transitioning back to your career, that you don't really think color commentary is your thing, or you didn't think you did a good job at it 3 years ago. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a national radio host, or do you want to bounce around and be able to do gambling as well and freelance?
Well, that's the thing is, I'm not quite sure. I mean, look, I think an ideal world I love to call games, right? I mean, that's the most glamorous position, right? Where you're still kind of connected to the game, right? You're going to stadiums, you're talking to guys, you feel like you're still part of the of the group, and there's a teamwork there. But I just don't know if that's my thing. I've been able to get by doing a lot of stuff at home. I really like radio. I think it's a good medium for me. I like to talk. I get time to talk elongated. But I think in the end, look, it just sounds. I don't know if this sounds terrible. I think most people do this. But studio TV is the least amount of time talking and the most money, right? That is I mean, I don't know how you would turn that down, but the studio jobs just aren't there. So I'm enjoying doing the radio. I'm trying to get in to more places and be able to do that. The one thing I have to fight all the time is this thing about the football guy, right? Which is interesting because in my Pac-12 show, we don't talk football 24/7. We don't even talk Pac-12 24/7. We talk a bunch of stuff. We talk all different sports. We talk NBA. We talk baseball. Very little, rarely. No one talks baseball. We talk a bunch of sport. We have to interview, the Colorado cross country coach. I talk to a bunch of people and talk about a bunch of sports. And I just try to get out of this thing as the football guy. I grew up a baseball fan, a basketball fan, and working my way through that in the national radio scene is tough. But I'd love to do more TV. I mean, I think that's hopefully there. And I think gambling might be the way into that world as a former player who knows gambling, knows the gambling terms, knows how it works. Doesn't mean I'm a great bettor or a perfect bettor, which I don't think is the point. I think entertainment is the point of that. And adding my perspective as someone who playing the game, it doesn't always align with what the numbers say. And using that to my advantage and talking about gambling is a road that I want to pursue. So probably radio, the gambling stuff. And if that includes TV in that, then I'd love to be in that direction. But I'm not getting an ESPN countdown job probably ever. So, I just kind of have to figure out where I can kind of slide into TV.
It's got to be more edifying doing radio or writing than doing TV, just from a creative fulfillment perspective, right?
Yes, but writing an article is a long time, and TV is less time, and you get 20 times the money to do it. So like, it's one of the things where like, I didn't say this, but someone mentioned this, and I think it's true. It's like writing is the most amount of work for the least amount of money, and you might get the most satisfaction. I feel very good when I write a really long X and O's piece and put it out there and people talk about it for weeks, right? Radio is less work than writing and less, and more money. And then TV is kind of less work than all of them combined, and you make 20 times the money that you make anywhere else. And so it's a balance between, obviously, and I've had to learn how to do TV better because I do radio so much. You get on TV, you have to talk for 45 seconds, and like that's it. Like you better get your point in right now, be concise with it. For radio, I can talk about a subject for 12 minutes without stopping and blab however I want to blab away.
I think the first half of 2020 could be seen as an inflection point in TV money versus internet money. I mean, we talked about Rogan, like Bill Simmons sold a company for 9 figures. Barstool got resold at a valuation of $450 million. Rogan, Portnoy, and Simmons are 3 people who have made more money online than they could have ever dreamed of making in television. And as recently as like 7 months ago, you couldn't say that about anybody.
Yeah, but I think as long as sports are still going to be on television and not streamed as so much, there's still a lot of value in TV, right? I think if sports moves more on the digital side, which eventually it will, I think the NFL might be the last one to do it. I mean, they have a bunch of old owners that love network television. And I actually think moving back to ABC, is what they're going to do at some point off of ESPN, because more people are cutting the cord. They're still going to have basic cable. So we're going to have ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. But as long as it's still going to be on those stations and still going to be on TV, there's still going to be a lot of value, I think, in ESPN covering sports, NFL Network, MLB Network, all those networks. But if it moves more to digital, then I think you'll lose more value in those TV jobs.
Geoff, you got a visit Sunday night from some of my NBA Twitter mob mentions when you said the OJ doc was better than The Last Dance. That didn't sit well with NBA Twitter. Now listen, nobody enjoys poking at them more than me. Well, but how do you explain that? Well, I don't like MJ. I like him less from this doc. I still think it was probably a better doc than the OJ doc.
Oh, not a chance. Now I know the OJ doc might be a crime, more of a true crime than a sports doc, but also my Twitter is set up to where my mentions only filter in if you follow me. So filters out a lot of riffraffs. I didn't see a lot of NBA Twitter going after me because they don't follow me. It's been great for my Twitter. The Jordan doc was very good, but we kind of knew a lot of that already, right? Like we kind of knew what happened in '98, like that it ended. Now we might not known about that actually was food poisoning allegedly, which as the days pass, it feels less and less like probably food poisoning. Maybe it was some bad pizza he ate, they didn't physically poison the pizza, but maybe it was like bad cheese or something. But look, I think we kind of knew the story. It was nice to get behind the scenes and hear Jordan talk about it. But we already knew Jordan was a fierce competitor, that he was, he yelled at teammates, he got the most out of his teammates, all that. We knew all that stuff, right? The OJ doc, for a lot of people, now I grew up right there. I grew up 3 or 4 miles from where the crime happened. I knew most of the story, but we didn't know a lot of the story. We didn't know a lot of what happened. And just to hear the perspective of everyone involved in that, to tie in kind of the times in Los Angeles and what was happening racially at the time too as well, tying that all together, I thought just was much better. I learned far more about society and crime and OJ in that doc than I learned, in my opinion, about Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, here's how you judge better, though. The OJ doc was definitely better journalism because it was third party and it was exhaustive, and it was more informative, as you said, Geoff. The MJ doc was more fun to watch. It was more. It's like the difference between an action film and a very serious war movie. The MJ doc is better if you're my favorite movie franchise is Fast and the Furious. I just want to go see a bunch of things blow up and forget about life for a few hours.
Well, no, That's definitely fair. To be fair, my judgment for whether I like something or not is literally just, did it entertain me? Like, there's movies that people hate that I like because I just want to be entertained. And so yes, both docs entertain. I'm just saying, when you go like the best, yes, you could think more in Jordan doc. I mean, in the OJ doc, it's obviously the true crime part of it and whatnot. And look, the Jordan stuff I thought it was great behind the scenes. I liked it. But again, like we knew how it ended, right? We knew that at the end he left, and there wasn't a surprise. We knew the shot that he made. Now I will say, the shot over Russell, I did not know that he didn't push him at all. Like, that was all Russell. Like, that was new. That was new information. But in the end, I don't come out of it changing my mind about Jordan at all. I think that the thing that I liked most about him through the entire 10 episodes was that he didn't apologize one time for who he is. He owns who he is. He understands who he is. He's comfortable with who, even though that pisses people off. He knows it pisses people off. But I like that he's comfortable about who he is, his attitude toward things, the way he pushes teammates. And look, he could easily said, "I'm sorry, I was too mean to Scott Brown." Call him a hoe 7 times in a row, which is, I'm surprised he didn't fight him. But he didn't. And I'm fine with that idea. I think too many people apologize now for past actions that really aren't that egregious, especially when you consider the time it was in. I mean, this is the 90s. Like, that's the way people talk to people on the court. And then guess what? People still talk shit now. But, like, so the thing about it is, like, I'm glad he didn't apologize. But again, like, I was like, okay, cool. Like, fun to watch. Now, how would we have felt if we had sports on right now? Obviously, it would have been in June anyways, but it would have felt differently. But, in June, everyone's in summer. I think we would have felt this differently if it aired in June than it aired now with no sports.
Does food poison gate make it harder for you to order a pizza? Because now every time I order a pizza, I'm going to think, well, am I going to get food poisoning? Or if I have the flu, I'm going to think, well, wait, was it that pizza I had a couple weeks ago? I think it really hurt the pizza industry. I think it's being under-talked about.
Do you not eat pizza a lot? Like, are you like not an eater?
I mean, I just think that, it's such a debate. Do you want pizza, wings, or whatever? And I think now with that scandal or
from
that
1998
or date, you might think, okay, well, I'm going to side not with pizza.
I mean, maybe this specific restaurant in Salt Lake City might be hurt from this. I don't even know what restaurant it was. But otherwise, like, I got a pizza for my kids the other day. I didn't think about, hey, Jordan got food poisoning in 98 while probably in Las Vegas. Or, no, actually, so I have a buddy, my radio co-host, Sean O'Connell, is from Utah. He said he went to Wendover, Utah. There's a casino there, supposedly. Like, that's the rumor, that he was actually in Wendover gambling and drinking the night before with not food poisoning. Nonetheless, like, I'm supposed to not order pizza because of a 97 food poisoning incident in Utah, in Salt Lake City. I don't follow that logic.
This is
you, Ryan. Is that going to change your eating habits at all?
No, none of us. It's not going to change any of our eating habits. We continue. I mean, I've gotten food poisoning before from bar food. And guess what? I still eat wings. I still eat chips and salsa. I still eat mozzarella sticks. Like, doesn't change my appetite.
Geoff, Bobby is somebody who says that hamburgers, their day is over. Nobody eats them anymore.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, if you go to a restaurant or a bar, you would see a lot of people eating hamburgers or cheeseburgers. You don't see that now. Like, wings, pizza, salad, all that is overtaken it. Like, even if you go to a fast food place, people are ordering chicken sandwiches or breakfast. I mean, the appetite for cheeseburgers out in public has decreased significantly in the past 10 years. And I don't care what the facts say. Like, I don't care if some report says, "Oh, hamburger sales are up." That's my observation. I think it's a pretty strong one. I mean, like, next time you're out, when all this quarantine stuff's over, whenever that is, come tell me that you go to a bar and there's less people. There's not less people eating burgers than there was 10 years ago.
I mean, how did I measure that from 10 years ago? I don't remember. It's not something that I worried about when I was 23 years old. Hey, are people eating hamburgers? Or are they not? Let me check that. Producer over here crying in the screen. Michael's crying in the screen. I think that people eat less meat maybe in general, just because for health reasons. I don't. That's not my thing. But if you do that, go ahead. Dude, a good cheeseburger it's so good. Like, when you're out, you're like, I just need a cheeseburger, and you order a cheeseburger. Literally, I'm watching Michael cry. It's so funny. No, I don't think cheeseburgers are dead. I'm gonna make I might make one tonight just to spite you.
I'm a double thin patty cheeseburger guy over a single thick patty. What's your preference?
Oh yeah, like a 3x3 from In-N-Out type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like patties, double patties over one thick one.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I was back in the day when I was in California, or I was actually in Arizona training. I'd smash like a 3x3 sometimes, animal style, protein style as well. No bun, just smash two of them after workouts. So good. In-N-Out is, it's amazing. Bobby, don't slander In-N-Out now. I know you. I can see your pursing your lips.
Had In-N-Out.
Talk shit about In-N-Out before.
Yes, we don't have In-N-Outs over here.
Good. You'll slander In-N-Out. I could tell. You have Jets Pizza. I've had the Detroit style pizza is good. I'm guessing you're in Detroit because you have a bunch of Detroit stuff in the background. I have no idea, honestly.
What do you think? Do I need to get rid of that Magic Johnson picture because it doesn't really fit?
I didn't even notice it was Magic. Yeah, it doesn't fit. Yeah, you need to put like Isaiah Thomas or something.
Yeah, I think I'm
Bill Lambier.
Maybe like Joe Louis because I think he represents the city the best.
Just put one of Stafford up there.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's gonna have to. Well, I mean, I can't blame him for last season because he was hurt, but I mean, the pressure's on him this year because they passed up on Tua. I'm not just going to, concede that Stafford is the guy for the Lions moving forward because he's a first overall pick. He's been a good quarterback, but I mean, this team has lost so much since he's been on the roster.
I've changed. I want you to put a picture of Matt Patricia on his scooter when he busted his leg up there. That's the picture that you need. I'm going to make sure that gets up there. I'm going to text Clay and be like, hey, we need to get a better background for your boys over here.
We do got to get better backgrounds. I'm handicapped right now by the fact that my office, the light is out. It's too high for me to reach, and I don't want to have our landlord come in with a ladder during everything that's going on.
Why don't you just wear a mask and stay away from your landlord?
I don't know. Maybe it
feels like you don't actually want to change the light.
I also, it's more comfortable in here than my office, and the dogs barking is harder to control out there, yada, yada, yada.
I feel like we've loosened the societal rage on one of these calls when there's a baby or a dog in the background. I feel like we're like, okay, whatever, the dog barks, someone farted, some baby's crying, whatever, it's okay now, it's quarantine. I hope we don't go back. I've actually enjoyed going to the grocery store and going to Costco and no one being near you. I kind of hope that we sort of maintain some sort of public bubble where I don't have people crowding me at Costco after this. I doubt it's going to be that way. People are going to go rush back and buy up the toilet paper. But I hope we have a new. I hate the new normal term. It's this is not the new normal, right? We're going to eventually be able to not wear masks. Just be like we are. Maybe it's a year. Maybe it's 2 years. Maybe it's 6 months. Who knows? New normal. I hate that word, but I do hope that the idea of not crowding some of the grocery store continues moving forward.
The worst one is when you're on air on the phone, the UPS man's knocking because they will knock until you come down and open the door.
Yeah, but I got to the point where I've been in this house 3 years now. They just leave the thing on the porch and walk away. I'm in a neighborhood where I'm not getting stuff jacked, and so they just leave it. We order so much. I don't even go out anymore. Even before the quarantine, I order everything on Amazon. They've taken all my money. I don't even Amazon anything I can order online. I don't shop for clothes. They don't fit me, so I don't go out shopping. I just go to the grocery store. I go to the grocery store or the gym, which is closed, and I order stuff on Amazon. That's how I run my life.
That's a good way to end this quarantine live podcast. Once again, Geoff Schwartz, Sirius XM Pac-12 Network Radio, Channel 373. The podcast, Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You. Hopefully, we'll see you on some games this fall.
Oh, no. How about let's hope for let's go with, no, that's not happening. Don't even try for that. Let's work on TV. Let's see if that's some TV appearances first.
Okay. Let's hope we see him with some TV appearances this fall.
Yeah, no, calling games is down the road. Or maybe, there's a couple of national open radio spots. I don't know. We'll see. We'll make some calls. We'll see what happens.